Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're going to get into something pretty interesting. We're going to be diving into this whole world of online censorship and free speech.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a really big one, and specifically what we're looking at today is are the experiences of these content creators who are saying that they are being silenced for, revealing or sharing controversial truths.
Yeah, and it's always a big debate, right? Because how do you define controversial truths?
Exactly.
So that's what we're looking into.
Yeah, it's like, where is that line? And
Right.
who gets to decide that? And
Yeah.
so we are actually jumping into the thick of it right away
Through it.
with a YouTube video
Okay.
and its comment section.
Okay.
And both of these are focused on individuals who believe that they've been targeted.
Okay, so we're going to hear directly from people who feel like they've been censored.
Yes. So the video we're starting with is titled, and it's a very long title. It's called 2017, David Seaman, Banned from Internet for Truth Internet Censorship. Shocking must-see .mp3.
Wow. Okay, so somebody's passionate about this in 2017. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
What's the context here?
So this was right around the time
Right.
when, deplatforming controversial figures like Alex Jones was becoming a huge issue.
Right.
And the video creator here is claiming that David Seaman and a friend of his named Christy Sailors were both banned from Twitter and YouTube,
Okay.
supposedly for speaking about something called Pizzagate.
Pizzagate.
That's a bit of a mystery.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, and the creator seems to use that interchangeably with Pizzagate,
Oh, Pizzagate.
which, as you might know, was this debunked conspiracy theory that went viral back in 2016.
Right.
And it essentially alleged that these high-ranking Democratic officials were involved in a child sex trafficking ring operating out of a Washington, D.C. pizzeria.
Yeah, Pizzagate. Yeah, I remember that now. And, I can see how something like that would get flagged because, theories like that can sometimes lead to, real world harm.
Yeah.
You remember that incident where somebody actually fired an assault rifle inside that pizzeria
Yeah.
based on, that false information. So,
Absolutely.
it's understandable why platforms might be sensitive to that.
Yeah, and the video creator here seems particularly fixated on Pizzagate being the reason for these bans.
Okay.
And they, go on to express, this deep concern about online censorship and the idea that dissenting voices are being silenced, especially those that are challenging mainstream narratives. And they even draw a parallel to what happened with Alex Jones and InfoWars.
Well, that's interesting. So they're trying to kind of connect their experience to this bigger pattern of censorship against people who are seen as controversial or even dangerous by the mainstream media.
Exactly. And they're not just venting frustrations. They actually call for action.
Oh, wow.
Suggesting protests and rallies to fight back against this perceived censorship.
Okay, so they're trying to mobilize people.
Yeah, they're trying to get people out in the streets.
It's interesting how they're moving from online complaints to real world action.
Absolutely.
It really shows how much this means to them.
It does, and it shows the power of, online communities to really rally around these causes.
Right.
But then there's this really odd moment where the creator starts talking about energy vampires.
Energy vampires.
And spiritual entities.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
It's a little out of place. It feels almost like they realized they were going off on a tangent and quickly pulled back.
That is strange.
It is, but it might also reflect how some people see these issues not just as political or social,
Right.
but almost as a spiritual battle between good and evil.
Yeah, I could see that.
Before moving on, they make sure to praise James Woods, the actor.
James Woods. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
curveball.
I know, right? What's he got to do with all of this?
Right.
It's a little unclear from the video, but it sounds like he was publicly supporting those who were banned or speaking out against Pizzagate.
Okay.
And the creator even interprets a Family Guy episode featuring James Woods as some kind of predictive programming.
Predictive programming. Now that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's this idea that, major events are foreshadowed or even orchestrated through popular media.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're really seeing this as part of some larger pre-planned agenda.
They are.
Wow.
And speaking of layers, we now have a second perspective to consider.
Okay.
The YouTube comments on this video.
Oh, the comments section.
Yeah.
All right, buckle up.
Exactly. And this one does not disappoint.
Oh, good.
We have a comment from a user named War Rants,
Okay.
who describes their own experiences with censorship on YouTube and Facebook.
So another first-hand account,
Yeah.
but maybe from a totally different angle.
Exactly. And War Rants claims that they're being targeted for using the word Jew factually.
Okay.
Not in a derogatory way, but platforms are flagging it as hate speech regardless.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I mean, context is so important with language, and it seems like, War Rants feels like their context is being ignored.
Right. And it gets even more complicated because they then connect Trump to 9/11 criminals and what they call the Odin Plan.
The Odin Plan? Okay. This is getting interesting.
Yeah, claiming it's all part of a greater Israel project that could lead to war with Iran.
Okay, so now we're going from like concerns about censorship to like a really big geopolitical narrative.
Yeah.
It's important to, point out that these claims are highly disputed.
Oh, absolutely.
And not really supported by any mainstream evidence.
Yeah, we're just presenting what's in the source material.
Right.
But it's fascinating to see how they're weaving together these different threads, and presenting their perspective on what they think is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, it shows how these issues can get really tangled up with, personal beliefs and worldviews.
Absolutely. And before we go any further, I do want to highlight one more detail.
Okay.
War Rants ends their comment, urging viewers to download and re-upload their videos to get around censorship.
Oh, wow. So like a call to action.
Yeah.
Similar to the video creator, but with a different focus.
Totally.
It's interesting how they're both proposing solutions, but they're coming at it from different angles.
Yeah.
One's more about like activism and the other is more about, tech-savvy workarounds.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And their responses kind of highlight this key tension in this whole debate, the power dynamic between individual users and these giant tech platforms.
It's like a classic David and Goliath situation.
Yeah.
You've got these individuals who feel like their voices are being silenced.
Yeah.
And then you've got these giant corporations with so much power to control what people see online.
Right. And it can feel really overwhelming for those individuals. Feeling like you're shouting into a void and nobody can hear you.
I can see how that would be frustrating.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to shed light on the different perspectives, the challenges, and the potential solutions.
Right. We need to understand the nuances of all of this.
We do.
How content moderation works, how these algorithms function, and how it all impacts our lives.
It's complex.
It is.
But, it's not just about the individual creators who feel censored.
Right.
It's about all of us and, the future of online discourse.
It really is, because if we want to have like a healthy online environment where different voices can be heard and where we can have meaningful discussions, we need to be aware of these issues.
Yeah, and we need to be actively involved in shaping the rules of the game.
Absolutely.
So what does all of this mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about these debates that are unfolding in this, often messy world of online content?
Well, for one thing, these debates have real-world consequences. I mean, think about it. The ability to express yourself freely online is becoming more and more important.
It's essential.
Right? It affects our ability to participate in public discourse, to engage in political activism, even to do business. I mean, so much of our lives is happening online now.
It's true. It's almost like the public square has moved online.
Exactly. And we're still figuring out the rules of that new public square.
Right. And who gets to write those rules?
Yeah. And how are those rules enforced?
Yeah.
Those are really important questions.
They are. And so far, we've explored these two sources.
Right.
Each with its own take on online censorship. We've seen the frustration.
Right.
The calls to action and, these broader anxieties about free speech in this digital age.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, and we've only scratched the surface of this really complex topic.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not about giving you all the answers. It's about making you curious and encouraging you to explore more.
Absolutely.
To dig deeper.
So as we move forward, we want to leave you with a question to ponder.
All right, hit me with it.
Do these examples represent legitimate attempts to curb harmful content?
Okay.
Or a concerning trend towards silencing dissenting voices, regardless of their validity?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's the heart of the dilemma.
It really is.
On the one hand, platforms have a responsibility to protect individuals from hate speech, harassment, and demonstrably false information that can lead to real-world harm.
Right.
But on the other hand, who gets to decide what's harmful or false?
Exactly. And where do you draw the line between protecting people and stifling opinions, even ones that we might find, like, distasteful or misguided.
Right, and that's where the potential consequences for our access to information and the health of online discourse, really come into play.
Right, because if we go too far with censorship, we risk creating these echo chambers.
Yeah.
Where only certain perspectives are allowed, and that can lead to more polarization and less critical thinking.
Exactly, but if we're too lax, platforms could become breeding grounds for hate speech, disinformation, and even incitement to violence.
It's such a delicate balance.
It is. It's a constant balancing act, and it's constantly evolving as technology and societal norms change.
It really is.
But what's crucial is that we as users and citizens engage in these debates thoughtfully and critically.
I agree. We need to understand the arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
Think about the consequences of different approaches.
Yeah.
And advocate for policies that promote both safety and freedom of expression.
Exactly, because this is a conversation we all need to be having.
Absolutely. It really is a tightrope walk.
It is, and it's made even more complex by the way that these platforms actually implement these policies. Remember when we talked about shadow banning at the beginning?
Oh, right. Shadow banning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange concept.
It is. It's this idea where a platform will limit the reach of a user's content without explicitly notifying them.
Oh, so they don't even know it's happening.
They might not. So their posts or videos might not show up in search results or on people's feeds as much.
Oh, so they're basically invisible.
Kind of, yeah. Like they're being put in a corner, but they don't even know they're there.
Yeah. That's got to be frustrating.
It can be incredibly frustrating, for creators who feel like their work is being suppressed, but they don't get any explanation or any way to appeal it.
Yeah, and I could see how that would make it really difficult to even have like an open conversation about what's okay to say online.
Yeah.
Because if the rules are always changing and they're not being applied fairly, it creates this environment of fear and self-censorship.
It does. It does. And it brings us back to our two sources and the concerns that they raised.
Right.
While their specific issues might seem kind of separate, they're both the video creator and war rants seem to be struggling with the same underlying question.
That question of how do we balance online safety with, freedom of expression?
Yeah.
And there are no easy answers.
There really aren't. And they're both kind of proposing their own solutions. The video creator is calling for these protests and rallies,
right,
taking this more activist approach.
Okay.
And War Rants is advocating for circumventing censorship,
right,
through downloading and re-uploading these videos.
Oh, so almost like a form of digital resistance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting how their proposed solutions kind of reflect their own perspectives and experiences.
Right.
The video creator seems to be looking for like a big systemic change.
Okay.
And War Rants is focusing more on individual empowerment.
I see.
But both of those responses also highlight this key tension in this whole debate.
That power dynamic.
The power dynamic, yeah, between these individual users and these giant tech platforms.
Right. It's that David versus Goliath thing again.
It is.
Where you've got, these individuals who feel like they're being silenced, and then you've got these powerful corporations who are controlling, what everyone sees online.
Exactly. And that power imbalance can make people feel so helpless.
Yeah, it's like they're up against a wall.
Yeah, and that's why it's crucial to have these conversations,
I agree.
to bring these issues to light, to talk about the challenges, the different perspectives, the potential solutions.
Right. We need to understand all of the nuances.
We do. We need to understand how content moderation works, how these algorithms function, and, how it all impacts our lives.
Because it really does impact our lives.
It does. And it's not just about those individual creators who feel censored. It's about all of us.
Right.
And the future of how we talk to each other online.
Exactly. If we want to have like a healthy online world where people can share different opinions,
yeah,
and we can have real discussions,
right,
then we need to be aware of these issues.
Yeah, we have to be involved in shaping the rules of this online world.
Absolutely.
So, for you, the listener, why should you care about these debates that are happening, in the world of online content?
Well, think about it. These debates have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
The ability to express yourself online is becoming more and more essential.
Yeah, it's not just a fun thing anymore. It's kind of essential.
Exactly. It affects our ability to, participate in politics.
Yeah.
To be activists, to run businesses.
Right. It's true. So much of our lives happen online now.
It's almost like the public square has moved online.
Yeah.
And we're still figuring out the rules of that new space.
Right. And who gets to write those rules and how those rules are enforced? Those are huge questions.
They really are.
And so far, we've looked at these two sources, both with their own take on online censorship. And we've seen that frustration.
Yeah.
The calls to action and these broader anxieties about free speech in the digital world.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, and we've just started to scratch the surface of this really complex topic.
And that's what these deep dives are all about.
They are.
You know, it's not about finding all the answers. It's about getting you thinking.
Yeah.
And encouraging you to learn more.
Absolutely. So as we go forward, we want to leave you with some questions to think about.
Yeah.
What are the potential consequences of letting these big platforms have all this power over online speech?
Right.
And on the flip side, what are the potential dangers of not having any restrictions on free speech online?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And where do we draw that line,
Yeah.
between protecting people from harm and allowing for these open exchanges of ideas? Even controversial ones.
Right, because where's that line?
Yeah, where is it?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And these are complex questions.
They are.
With no easy answers, but they're questions we all need to be thinking about.
Because at the end of the day, the future of online speech depends on all of us.
It does. It's not just up to the tech companies.
Right.
It's about the choices we make.
As users, as citizens, as part of this digital world.
Exactly. And those choices will determine how we communicate, how we get our information, and how we shape the world around us.
It's pretty powerful when you think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
And as we continue to look at this topic, we really want to encourage you to dig deeper.
Yeah, keep learning.
Don't just take our word for it. Do your own research.
Right.
Consider different viewpoints and come to your own conclusions.
Because the more informed we all are,
the
better equipped we'll be to deal with this ever-changing digital world.
Exactly. It really does feel like we're all just figuring this out as we go.
Yeah, it's a constantly moving target, right?
Yeah.
The technology's changing and social norms are changing and the whole way we communicate online is constantly evolving.
It's true. And in the middle of all of that, we're trying to answer these really big questions about, free speech and censorship and how much power these tech companies should have.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're building the plane while we're flying it,
Exactly. And the stakes are so high because how we answer these questions, it's going to have a huge impact on our lives, not just online, but offline too.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. The internet is like our main source of information now. It's how we communicate, and it's becoming more and more like our virtual town square. So the way we interact online, it shapes how we see the world, what we believe, and even what we do.
It's powerful. And if we let these platforms control everything we see and hear, if they silence people they don't agree with or use algorithms to push certain agendas, what does that mean for our democracy? What does that mean for our ability to think for ourselves and have real debates?
It's a little scary when you think about it like that. And it shows just how important it is to be informed and engaged and to really take an active role in shaping how we talk to each other online.
Because this isn't just some abstract debate. It's happening right now and it has real consequences for real people.
Yeah, remember the video creator we talked about? They were calling for protests and rallies. They wanted to take a stand against censorship.
Yeah, and then war rants. They were talking about downloading and re-uploading videos. It's like their own kind of digital rebellion.
And both of those responses, even though they're different, show the same thing underneath.
That feeling of being powerless.
Yeah, they're up against these huge companies and they want to take back some control.
And it's not just about individual creators. It's about all of us who use these platforms every day to connect with people, to share ideas, to get information. So what can we do? How can we make this online world a healthier place, a more balanced place?
Well, I think the first thing is we have to be aware of what's going on. We have to understand how these platforms work, how their algorithms work, and how their policies are actually put into practice. And we can't believe everything we see online. We have to be critical thinkers.
Yeah, and we have to be willing to talk to people who have different views than us. Echo chambers don't help anyone. They just make us more divided.
That's so true. And I think it's also important to support those groups that are fighting for free speech online. The ones who are holding these companies accountable and pushing for policies that keep us safe, but also protect our right to speak our minds.
Because in the end, the future of online speech, it's up to all of us. It's not just about what these tech companies decide.
It's about the choices we make every day. As users, as citizens, as people who are part of this digital world.
And those choices matter. They'll shape how we communicate, how we learn about the world, and how we create the future together.
So this has been a pretty deep dive.
It has.
But it's really just a starting point, you know?
We've just scratched the surface.
Right. We've explored some different viewpoints. We've uncovered some really complex issues, and hopefully we've made you curious to learn more.
You hope so.
So as we wrap things up, we want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
The internet is still pretty new. And like anything new, there are going to be some growing pains. But the choices we make now, they're going to shape this digital world for generations to come.
That's a big responsibility.
It is. So let's make those choices carefully. Let's be informed, let's be engaged, and let's work together to create an online world that we can all be proud of. A world where we can all connect and share ideas and build a better future.
That's a great goal, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new, and we hope you'll continue to explore this really important topic and be part of the conversation about the future of online speech.